Hello, and welcome to the BBB Business Shield Security Series. I'm your host, Erika Genty, Microlearning Innovation Manager for NMSU Global. I'm a board member with the Better Business Bureau of New Mexico and Southwest Colorado, and a proud member of the BBB Security Committee. Serving alongside me are Dr. Minty Brown, Director of Education at Intellitech College in Albuquerque, and Rick Myers, founder of Caldera Cybersecurity. Our mission with this series is clear: to empower small businesses and nonprofits with the knowledge, tools, and confidence they need to safeguard against today's most pressing security threats. Over the past few episodes, we've explored some powerful and timely conversations. We began with the horror stories, real cybersecurity incidents told by professionals who lived through them when everything was on the line. Then we stepped into talking shop with AI, exploring how artificial intelligence is reshaping business and the risks that come with getting it wrong. At the Essential Security Summit, we pulled back the curtain on cybersecurity and physical security threats facing healthcare, where the stakes were quite literally life and death. The Deception Files exposed the dark underworld of human trafficking and fraud, where trust is weaponized and lives are changed forever. And today, we go deeper. Today, we step inside the briefing room. This is where national security takes center stage and decisions carry global consequences, where intelligence, strategy, national security take center stage. I'm joined today by two incredible experts who will share their insights. I'm pleased to introduce retired Colonel Ross Davidson, the founder of Chieftain Elite. Ross launched Chieftain Elite following his retirement from the U.S. Army, bringing with him more than 31 years of experience across conventional and special operations forces. His team specializes in program management, strategic and operational planning, and mission execution solutions that support successful business and national defense operations. Also joining us today is Ron Minty. He's the Chief Strategy Officer at Chieftain Elite Solutions and the founder and CEO of Paragon Leadership and Management Solutions. Ross spent 24 years in the U.S. Army as a combat veteran and senior leader, commanding at every level from platoon to battalion and serving in Joint Task Force operations. He led frontline combat formations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Korea, which really shaped the way he thinks about leadership, strategy, and building strong teams. So first up, we're going to hear from Ross.
Well, thanks so much for the kind introduction, Eric, and it's great to see you and the team on the net today. And both Ron and I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss something that's near and dear to our heart, because we do view cybersecurity for what it is, which is a true national security imperative. And when you look at the strategic landscape, we view cyber warfare as an unrelenting business. It really is. It is occurring 24/7, and we know that it will remain so. The threats are many; they're proliferating, and our society and way of life are truly dependent upon our digital interconnectivity. And that's where the crux is. We cannot do what we do, and we cannot operate our businesses effectively, our governmental organizations effectively, without that digital interconnectivity. So there's great dependence on it for our success. And of course, we know this will not change as rapid advances in digital technologies. They continue to offer great promise, yet they also open the door for additional threats that we will all face. So to illustrate what I'm the unrelenting nature of cyber warfare. Both Ron and I and our company, we were able to, through our partnership with New Mexico State University's Physics Science Laboratory, we were able to support the creation of the Cyber Learning Lab there over the past several years. And we were able to see it grow from a series of just small open rooms into a fully digitized structure. And our last visit, Ron and I were taken on a tour of how the capability there has increased. And one of the things I found most striking is the team that runs it had created a live, what we describe as a digital dashboard, So if you can envision a map of the globe, and they're tied into various threat reporting streams. It's been digitized, so they are able to see um, live every single cyber attack happening across the globe. And it looked like just this continuous war game of attacks and counteractions happening. It was a great illustration of just the nature of the incessant activity that's happening in cyberspace on the malicious side of things. When we consider cybersecurity from a national security imperative, protecting our digital infrastructure within the cyberspace domain is and will remain a top U.S. national security priority for good reason. And this is why it's so important. So when you look at strategic things from a defense perspective, we typically operate in five domains, as we like to call them. You got the land domain, which typically where all your physical stuff happens on land. Your sea domain, your air domain, and then the space domain. I think everyone is familiar with the over the past 5 years, the creation of the Space Force as an additional service. But one thing that's interesting about it is, while they all have their own unique characteristics and physics, it's cyberspace which kind of ties all those activities together. Our ability to command and control forces, to conduct planning, to do all variety of activities is dependent upon digital interconnectivity, the secure nature of which allows us to operate and do what we do, both in a peacetime role across CONUS, across the globe, but also forward deployed in the warfight. Now we know that the threats that we face in cyberspace typically are classified or broken into really three primary entities. So you clearly you have, I think everyone understands this. Clearly, you have your nation state actors, whose primary motive for being there is to conduct cyber warfare, which takes both a direct approach and an asymmetric approach. But also, we've seen over the past several decades this move from what we would consider traditional Cold War type of espionage and intelligence gathering. Um, those type of activities now happen in a preeminent way inside of cyberspace. So, back during World War II or during the Cold War, where we were sending agents into places to infiltrate, break in, steal documents, steal information, that sort of thing. Now, the preeminent effort there is happening inside of cyberspace, and the ability to infiltrate, steal IP, steal state secrets, gain insight, the ability to spread misinformation, disinformation, conduct psyops, conduct all kinds of social engineering and influence activities. All those things are happening in cyberspace, and we are all susceptible to it in some form or fashion. The typical motive, as you would expect for nation states, is their view of their national security and their priorities, and that's why they're doing it. But there's some bleed over here as well, right? Because we have another entity that we typically deal with, and this is the one that probably impacts small business the most. It's your criminal enterprises that are in cyberspace. They're engaging in illicit criminal activities. Typically, money, profit is the motive, and of course, there's a wide array of actors within that criminal enterprise space. It runs everything from drug cartels, human traffickers, narco traffickers, uh, illicit scammers, identity thefts, and these are run the array of both organized groups to individual actors, and the things along the lines of account takeovers where they steal your your personally identifiable information and other things about you, and use those to access your accounts and transfer, without authorization, transfer your funds from either individuals within your company or from your company itself into their accounts. And then the other big thing that we're all that impacts all of us is what's known as ransomware, where they use malicious code to take over your system, encrypt your stuff, and then hold it hostage. You're going to pay us X amount of dollars, or we're gonna delete it, destroy it, what have you. And then, of course, we have really a third threat actor that we've identified out there, and those are your non-state actors. And again, it runs the array of just malicious actors who can be individuals all the way up to organized groups who operate typically on an ideological basis that runs the gamut from political organizations, protest organizations, or just individuals, organizations that they're just malicious in nature. They want to sow discord. They want to sow societal discontent and upheaval, and they typically are engaging in cyberspace to do so because let's break it down. We are all part of this global digital interconnectedness, and it gives the ability to reach mass audiences and has mass impact, and thus they're able to sow their chaos and engage in their activities on a much broader scale. Because we are in that interconnected environment, if you think about the national security imperative as it relates to cyberspace and the ability to protect our critical infrastructure, let's think about what that is. So, just the United States as an example, all of our power grids, our fuel systems, airspace, aviation, our highway systems, our governmental organizations and the services they provide, our financial system, our health system, shipping, all those things, our supply chains, everything that comes and goes globally that passes through our ports. All those systems are absolutely reliant upon digital interconnectivity to successfully operate. And because of that, they are all susceptible to cyber attack, which can have some far-reaching and devastating consequences. Rick, you might be familiar with this, and some of you are as well. I'll tell you a story real quick about a global cyber attack that happened back in June of 2017, and it's on record as being the most catastrophic cyber attack in history to date. It was called the NotPetya cyber attack, and it started in a very innocuous way in Ukraine. And the rate at which it proliferated globally went from seconds to hours. And the impact it had in destroying systems, and that's what it was designed to do, to destroy. It destroyed so many systems, and it shut down so many businesses in this interrelatedness in the critical infrastructure globally, that the repercussions of that are still being felt, and we're talking tens of billions of dollars worth of accumulated damage. And what's interesting about it is the way in which it happened. So, a combination of malware, ransomware, wiper malware were combined, designed specifically to target and infiltrate systems that were all interconnected globally through servers that leveraged a vulnerability that just happened to exist that time in Windows, in particular, how Windows configured itself to support server connectivity. So if you think about it, all these entities that were affected, they're all related because they're all interconnected through this global server system. And this vulnerability was discovered through the group that perpetrated the attack. I'll get to that here in a little bit. But what's interesting is how they got access to the code to execute the attack. So in the months leading up to the attack, in particular about a year prior, there was a group known as shadow brokers. And shadow brokers was an online non-state actor, a loose collaboration of malicious hackers who operated on the dark web. And shadow brokers was able to breach the national security the National Security Administration, so the NSA at Fort Meade, and they were able to steal a 0-day malware code called Blue Eternal. And Blue Eternal was designed to exploit certain things in network systems. They're able to combine Blue Eternal with a wiper malware known as Mimikatz, which specialized in going in and stealing passwords into various servers through the exploit they found, which was in the Windows system at the time. When a password was used, it was without system users knowing it, it was stored in the root files of the computer system or the server. So Mimikatz was able to go in and get this, and because of the combination of these two, the malicious code was designed to go in, encrypt all the data, and destroy it. Absolutely wiped it from the hard drive, so everything just crashed. It was gone. There's no way of getting it back ever. And what happened is, those companies that did not have adequate backups or had no way of restoring anything. So Maersk Shipping Line, which a major global shipper, they had to shut down ports. They had to stop ships. They had everything came to a screeching halt. And because just by sheer luck, Maersk had a data center down in Ghana in Africa that just so happened there was a power outage. So it took that server stack offline and thus protected their one remaining data backup, which then allowed them to recover much rapidly. But many organizations were unable to do so. It wiped out small businesses that were unable to recover. It affected not just Ukraine where the initial attack happened, but that's where it was spread and proliferated from. But Europe, all continents. United States was hit in particular our health sector, our financial sector, and some other things. But again, it's illustrative of what a non-state actor, malicious group. Well, in this case, I said non-state actor. Attribution wise, it was that the Ashton State Cyber Group. Matter of fact, 6 individuals associated with that group were brought up on international charges emanating out of the United States because of that. And again, if you understand the context, Russia has been at war with Ukraine since the invasion of Crimea in 2014, and Ukraine has been under incessant cyber attacks since that time. And so that's just one indicator that yes, while in this case it is believed that Russia was in fact the nation state actor that perpetrated the attack, the effects went beyond just all nation states, and really it was, well, why did they do it? And most assess that the reason they did it was to show capability and prove they can do it, and also as a warning of, hey, these are the kind of capabilities we have and the kind of damage that we can bring upon you as a as from their perspective as a national security type of deterrence effect. Um,
Wow,
so
that's crazy. So the interconnectivity with that's so is so important to us. It also makes us pretty fragile. with
Yep.
that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So
Man,
again,
that's
to segue a little bit. So, okay, well, what does all this mean for us for businesses? Well, again, to emphasize, our success as businesses, large or small, is dependent upon that digital interconnectivity. There's no way of getting around it. You think about it, all of our computers, our phones, the software services, the internet, email, social media, data services, all those things that we depend on. And I think in many cases, uh, kind of as time has gone by, I've taken for granted. I mean, we cannot successfully operate our businesses without reliance upon those capabilities. That is here to stay, which in turn makes us all vulnerable to cyber attacks. But I might be going out on a limb here, but I would suggest that a lot of businesses, uh, to include our own in certain cases, and again, we know a lot about this. A lot of times I think we fall into the false premise of we believe it can't happen to us, and that is a dreadful mistake. And I will tell you right now, as we're on this podcast, we are, attempts are being made to attack us, exploit us, to gain access to our systems. As we sit here talking, the good thing is, a lot of those services that we depend upon, and a lot of this came out of the NotPetya attack. Changes were made, the right types of protocols and updates and systems were put into place. So there are some very good defenses out there that keep this stuff, at arm's length, but it's still happening. And what I believe to be true is, a successful attack on one of our elements. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. But the good news is, there's a lot we can do about it. But, it all starts with understanding, the attack surfaces we have that pose us risk. That's our internet service providers. It's our email providers. It's those digital services and devices that we have. It's our websites. It's those things that, that threat actors can access to try to either infect us with malware, give us a denial of service attack, or in most cases, like what we encounter, attempts to steal our IP, to mimic us, to strengthen the viability of their various phishing types of attacks in an effort to gain access to either a successful ransomware attack or an account takeover type of scenario. Um, so again, the most common threat that we face on the business side really is criminal enterprises. But as we've illustrated through the NotPetya example, we can also become collateral damage from nation state or other non-state actor attacks as they operate in cyberspace. So what can we do about it, right? And here's where it's there's a lot we can do about it. We don't have to take a posture of either apathy or fatalism. The fact is, there's a lot that we can do about it as small businesses to protect ourselves. And really, I break this down into three imperatives. I'll cover through these, and I'm gonna ask Ron to come in here in a bit, because he has some very insightful things to share on imperative number one, which is training and educating our workforce. And when we do place that as imperative number one, our workforce holistically is the number one line of defense. And it's everything from having the right standard operating procedures within your company, having the right security protocols, the right access controls, and a reporting mechanism where, when an attack is happening, or we think it's happening, we are doing things rapidly to respond to it. The second imperative is just having a sound defense plan, and this runs the guys from having the right cyber insurance type of policies for your company. Um, when all of our digital systems are dependent upon software updates and patches to vulnerabilities when they're discovered. So having a good disciplined protocol where we are verifying that the right patches are coming in and our updating of our systems is done in a proactive measure. We're not waiting after an attack occurs. We're keeping up with the stuff and we're staying ahead of it. And this is always happening on a cyclic basis. Our we've gone so far as we at Chieftain, we encrypt all of our data, not just PII stuff. Everything is encrypted and is controlled by us, and that's both for our on-prem stuff, that we keep on our personal devices, but everything that we have is backed up into secure cloud services that we subscribe to. And we've done a lot of research into which ones are best, et cetera. So we strive to have the type of capability that DoD uses. So, gov level encryption, operating on a secure cloud structure that has built-in backups. So data backups is huge. Key part of any recovery plan should we fall prey to a successful attack. So, data backups for both our on-prem and our cloud stuff, and then having a good recovery and response plan in play that is war gamed and periodically tested to make sure that it is where we need it to be. And our third imperative that we emphasize is collaboration and compliance. Attacks such as the NotPetya, and there are other examples certainly. I just use that for purposes of today's discussion. But we've really honed in on the cybersecurity maturity model certification process that DoD has been recommending for several years now, but now is making a mandatory step for any contractor or subcontractor that is going to do contracting business with the Department of Defense. And I will say that the CMMC model is proliferating out across other governmental organizations as well, because everything it contains was derived from post analysis and the lessons learned that emanated from these cyber attacks that have transpired over the past many years. And then the other thing is collaboration. Having within your strategic partner network, and we're blessed with our partnership with DDC and others, because a lot of this is their stock and trade, and we do a very good job in keeping up to date on what's the latest and greatest in terms of best practices, et cetera, to make sure that as we continue our business operations, we remain both we're able to mitigate impact should a successful attack occur, but we're also able to operate with some resiliency. And as we look towards the future, there's some things that we're looking at right now that I think hold some great promise. One is the implementation of artificial intelligence into the associated digital transformation efforts into the whole cybersecurity piece. And there's some great promise that we're seeing right now in the ability of AI in particular, its ability to look at, analyze code, and some other things as a means to find vulnerabilities earlier, and then with the right human judgment applied, generate recommendations for solutions for your cybersecurity needs. And then the other thing that we see coming up that I think holds some great promise, but also some potential peril that we'll need to look at is the proliferation of autonomous systems as they come online. Every autonomous system as its own entity can be subject to attack, reprogrammed and told to go do something it isn't supposed to do. So the ability to make sure that should our businesses rely upon autonomous systems for certain things. Again, I think along the lines of autonomous drone monitoring of power lines and oil field surveys and those kind of things. You can only imagine, a state actor, using malicious code to, take over one of those systems, then use it for its own reconnaissance purposes, or the ability to steal data that's generated from those autonomous systems and sensors. So, some things that we're keeping an eye on for the future. But, at the end of the day, cybersecurity absolutely matters. It is and will remain a national security imperative. But with the proper approach, we can mitigate both the impact and continue to operate with resiliency through what we do. And Ron, I know you got some. I know you got some great thoughts and your own experience, and uh, in particular on our workforces. Ron, I'll turn it over to you, but I'm happy to take any questions, or go into any detail on anything I've covered, Erika.
That's awesome. I think let's hear from Ron real quick, and then we will ask you some questions at the end. Thank you so much for sharing. Ron, you're up.
All right. Hey, first, thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this. And just to key off what Ross was talking about, it's more than the tools of cybersecurity. And what I want to address, it's the leadership to get the organizational culture right. In a small business, that small culture may be 5 people, but all 5 of us should be focused on any business case that we bring to generate some revenue for our company, right? It has to have a component of cybersecurity. And I'll get a little bit down into the weeds because I'm good there too sometimes, but it's how much is it going to cost us to execute what this client wants and safeguard their data and make sure that any other vendors that we bring in are compliant with safeguarding data. It's that culture of, do I click on this link or not? And that comes from very, very good training and awareness. And just to go one layer deeper on the training and awareness, there are, as my friend Jeff Vargas says, there are 5 generations in the workforce. So, the boomers, or the traditionalist boomers, and maybe even some of us Gen Xers, we need a little bit tailored training so we understand it. I mean, foundational is getting all the vocabulary right. So we're speaking together. We understand what term means what, but that has to be done. And then from the leadership perspective, there's another thing, a psychological safety. I know I'm trained, I'm empowered, I understand what to look for before I click that link. And the leadership is providing that to me. And I have the tools and I know how to think before I click that link. And so each of these things lead to mitigating risk for your own organization, even if you're a team of teams, and also mitigating it for your client. And they're giving you information that they don't want out either, regardless of what kind of relationship it is in any business. It could be supply chain, it could be providing digital transformation for an organization. It doesn't matter. It needs to be part of it. And so I put that out there because it comes down to another decision that has to be made. Am I going to do in-house cybersecurity? I'm going to create my own team, or am I going to outsource it? And what is my rubric for grading out which one? So from a small business, it's the leadership with constant messaging. Doesn't need to be the conversation at the water cooler every day, but maybe 1 or 2 days of the week, somebody brings up a cybersecurity topic. Maybe it's in one of your battle rhythm event, some meeting. It's always talked about, and it's always integrated into all your business cases. And so those are the things that create a culture and the shared learning within that culture. So those are the couple of quick points to offer from a small business perspective. It seems like it's easier to do at a small business because we're probably all in the same office and that's the company, right? But as you grow, that needs to still be integrated. And that at scaling, that's one to keep an eye on. So thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you. We always hear that it starts with leadership. But you actually told us a little bit about how that does look like in practice, about slipping it into those water cooler conversations and that constant messaging. So that's that's amazing. That's great. And then Ross was talking about the digital interconnectedness of makes us all is it making us more resilient, or is it making us more fragile? And what does that mean for the future of not only business but national security? Those are some questions that we have when we're there. Um, Rick and Mindy, did you have any questions?
Well, I did. I had a couple comments, and really looking for an opinion too to kind of dive deeper on this. Now, AI. AI has all of a sudden become really popular amongst small businesses trying to compete in the world. And probably about 2 or 3 years ago, Chat GPT came on the market, and everybody got really interested about how it could save them time, become more efficient, and ultimately more profitable. But I see some of my clients actually using AI, and they're building out AI, applications within their company, building their own LLMs, things like that. What would you say are the things that they really need to be cognizant of in terms of building and exploring AI within their business, and how to protect that? That's either to Ross or both of you guys. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I can start that out. So so Ron and I, when we first started Chieftain Elite about 5 years ago, we were involved in exploration of some AI-like capabilities from an R&D type of perspective. And I had come from the Joint Staff J7, where we had implemented a version of IBM's Watson as an early model of an LLM, to help us become more efficient in how we were operating the Joint Unit Lessons Learned system. So, from a practical approach, that was kind of my first exposure to it. And what I've seen, and that was 6, 7 years ago. So what I've seen since then in this proliferation of technology is absolutely profound, Rick. And the types of capabilities that exist now, through the efforts of Chat GPT, which I know to the audience is probably the most well known or the most popular one. But there's been so many others that have proliferated from that. And I think on the positive side, what it offers in terms of a capability is transformational in how things are taken out of a analog manual type of effort approach, and now being fully automated to gain efficiencies and speed up processes. Matter of fact, we're doing the work we've done this past year with the defense civilians across the Army Testing Evaluation Command is really centered on training and education, but the training and education revolves around how to use AI technologies to improve your developmental testing processes. And it's run the gamut from, hey, is there a way to use AI agents integrated with a model of how certain functions work to gain efficiencies? The one that comes to mind off the top of my head is the risk management process for developmental testing is extensive, and yet the bulk of the data that comprises that risk management piece, it's all either known or it's historical. And yet when the teams and the boards are going through the risk management process, they're having to, in essence, physically pull from various drives and servers all this data, compile it into spreadsheets, and try to make sense of it so that they can give the right recommendations for a developmental test, which could have catastrophic consequences if they get it wrong. And because we implemented these case models into our course structure, you know, and took the student population of defense civilians and broke them into small problem-solving teams, and then empowered their effort by matching each of those small groups with a true artificial intelligence data science subject matter expert with both military backgrounds and from industry, collaborating to use the tools, their own tools. Again, nothing that they're pulling from the open market, but Army Test and Evaluation Command sanctioned tools that have all been tested and put to the ringers to make sure that they have the right security protocols, et cetera, and it's operating on the right nets. They're able to take their own tools and just in the prototype stage, in the auspices of a course, they're able to reduce that risk management process from nearly 6 months in some cases down to under 2 weeks.
I believe it.
So you talk about the time and cost savings, et cetera. It's fundamentally transformational. But you'll notice, like anything else, getting back to the digital interconnectivity of this, yes, there is also some risk inherent in that approach, and that's why my hats off to Mr. Brian Kelly and the Chief Data Officer team at ATEC, because they recognize that. So they did the right due diligence and have the right protocols in place so that the tools that are being used have been vetted to ensure that there are no vulnerabilities built into them. And I don't know if that I'm probably just scratching the surface a bit on what you're after, Rick, but that's kind of the illustrative of how I see it. So there's clearly huge benefit to integrating AI technologies to gain efficiencies.
Yeah.
But like anything else, there's this duality, right? There's also this risk, and you have to be aware of it.
Right. And I actually, that's kind of where I was tugging at was, a lot of small companies who may have a small development team, they go out and do a little bit of research about how to build out their own LLM, and they create a chat bot for their customers to gain access to, say, customer accounts or, PII data on the behalf of that customer. But they don't test it to make sure that the boundaries and guideposts are built into that chat bot so that it does not leak data out that they don't anticipate. And so that would be the warning I would give, anybody would give about, just using this technology. Is exciting, but it's also a new area that we need to test. So when we talk about pen testers looking for vulnerabilities on network devices, we need people who can pen test chats, LLMs, to make sure that there's no data leakage, unintentional data leakage that unexpected. So very good. And the other question I have, and this is kind of a fun question, is like, you're talking about education and teaching people about cybersecurity. Would you ever think that in the future we're going to see, like, we know that we have, math, history, science as subjects for, kids in school. Should cybersecurity also be part of the curriculum that we're teaching at a younger age? Just like we taught people how to fill out a checkbook, should they also understand technology and how to protect themselves?
What age are you talking?
I don't know. Maybe sixth grade. Maybe earlier. Maybe before they might get a cell phone. How do you protect yourself? So you're talking, what, 10, 11, 12-year-olds? Understand that. They understand technology, but would we ever see this as a subject that they have to go through and get formal education on, just so they're more protected as adults?
Yeah, actually, I'm part of a STEM initiative in the state of New Mexico, and we are looking at incorporating AI and cybersecurity education, not only into high school, but maybe all the way down to elementary school. So that is That is very, very interesting. Mindy, did you have any comments or questions?
Well, I was going to talk about the education side too, because, I'm at a school and you said number one imperative is to make sure everybody is trained. But how do we do that with our students? Like, we have students that come and students that go, and they don't always necessarily pay attention to all the emails that we send out and tell them not to respond to phishing emails and, those types of things. How do we, what's the frequency that we should be sending um, information out to our students, or what should we include in that?
Mindy, you bring up a great point, because I'll share a little story from um, when Ron and I were in Korea. The division commander we worked for was Major General Ed Cardone, and after he departed division command, he was promoted. He received his third star and was given command of the United States Army Cyber Command down at Fort Gordon. And fast forward several years, General Cardone came to visit my boss at Fort Lewis, Washington, when I was at First Corps, Steve Lanza, and he was able to share some insight from Army Cyber Command at that point in time, which is about a year prior to the to put it in context, about a year prior to the NotPetya attack, so in 2016. And one of the things I remember the most about what General Cardone shared with the collective leadership of First Corps is, again, the theme of, we're under attack constantly. And all it takes is one person in that organization to hit the wrong link, fall prey to a phishing email, etc., and you're compromised, right? So, what I would posture, Mindy, is, despite our best efforts, no amount of training is an ironclad approach to circumvent, a human error. People make mistakes. And again, here's the other danger. Coming back to Rick's earlier point, this proliferation of AI stuff. It's becoming very good at mimicking. It's making phishing attempts like almost, and then you throw deep fakes and other stuff in there. It's almost making it very hard to detect unless you are not super aware. Now there's some AI screening tools that I think are on the horizon here that will help you or help your system detect those sorts of things and alert you to it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's why our second imperative of a sound defense plan and a recovery plan for when those things happen. I think one of the key things is, as soon as it's it has to be while and here's where there's some friction, I suppose, because clearly, if someone allows an attack to get in and they were trained and they either let their guard down and they missed it, yeah, there has to be some sort of accountability. But it has to be balanced in a way where, hey, let's not let bad news grow or proliferate. Let's report, alert, and let's get the plan in play to respond and recover.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's my view on it, Mindy, and I think that will remain a reality.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I do have one question before we leave for Ron. Ron, you focus on organizational leadership, and I work entirely remote, and I lead an entirely remote team. And that is increasingly the trend. In fact, I'm doing a research study on remote leadership as well. So how does remote or hybrid work change the national security landscape for companies?
That's a great question, because actually what we're seeing is the shrinkage of remote work and bringing folks back into it. And I believe it really comes down to national security wise is what you can leverage AWS, Azure. Those are the remote tools that allow you to work in disparate locations. When everything starts coming back in and shrinking back in on-prem, that it's a little bit harder, right? It's things that are focused on-prem and not available outside of that, and you get into different classifications of information. For example, national security wise, or even proprietary information. You bring all that in on-prem. So I think what we learned was how to operate on secure clouds for remote work. And it just has so many points of entry where it could be breached because, I'm working out of my address, my personal address, might have all the bells and whistles and everything that I need, but I'm still another point of penetration, basically, that can come in and access from my Wi-Fi, as an example, or a Bluetooth device walking through the, I don't know, Safeway or Kroger, right? If that's what I have on there. So it's awareness. It's awareness and understanding the environment that you work in could cause it. Now, how do I recognize it when it starts happening? If I'm being attacked. And so I'd say from the remote part of that is that training is probably almost a consistent update. I mean, there used to be that old Moore's law, the number of transistors you can put on a card, is going to double every so often. That's the information, and that's the type of attacks that can come in. It's just exponential. I think it's called the law of accelerating returns, is the exponential growth of technological progress. So we'll never keep up with it. I don't think so. As a human being, just with what's up here, it'll require, just like Ross and everybody's alluded to. So probably every prompt engineering 101 class needs to have a cybersecurity module in it.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that would be a concept to explore from my perspective.
And I would just add to Ron, it's you really have to look at the effectiveness of the training. I can't speak for everyone on the net, but for Ron and I, especially in the military, you typically have what we call annual training requirements. And it's typically the dreadful log on to the system, go through a bunch of PowerPoint slides, take a little quiz at the end, and you're considered trained. And what I would submit is, the effectiveness of the response is directly proportional to the effectiveness and the quality of the training.
Absolutely.
Not wrong. That's for sure.
And you got to make them. Whoever's being trained, they'll learn and retain by doing something that practices or demonstrates the skill they're being trained on, as opposed to just trying to absorb it in a lecture and retaining it that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My 2 cents.
Yeah, and Eric, one thing I'd add to that is whenever I'm talking to my teams about, in providing some security awareness training, I always tell them the things you learn in this class, take home with you. Practice that same computer cybersecurity hygiene at home, because it will protect you, but it also protects the business as well. Because a clean home that has, a router that has the right firewall settings on it, there's EDR software on their personal devices, makes them more secure. So by spreading that out, the working remote is kind of a reality that we live in now. And so protecting our homes is as important as protecting our business locations.
Absolutely.
So true, Rick.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
A powerful conversation we had today. My brain is full. I have taken notes all over the place. I have so many questions, but we are so out of time. So in this episode of the Briefing Room, we stepped beyond the headlines and into the realities that are shaping national security, where strategy, intelligence, and leadership intersect, and where decisions made behind closed doors ripple far beyond the room itself. Today's discussion reminded us that security isn't abstract, it's operational, it's human, and it's constantly evolving. A sincere thank you to our guests for sharing their expertise and perspective and real-world insight. Your experience brought clarity to complex issues and helped illuminate what's at stake when security, technology, and leadership collide. I'd also extend my gratitude to the team who makes this series possible. Your behind-the-scenes work ensures these conversations reach people who need them most. And to our partners at the Better Business Bureau serving New Mexico and Southwest Colorado, thank you for your continued commitment to education, awareness, and community protection. And of course, thank you to our listeners. Those conversations matter because you are willing to lean in, ask hard questions, and stay informed. And coming up next, we have planning for the unthinkable. No one wants to imagine the worst, but preparation saves lives. This series will focus on how businesses, schools, and organizations can prepare for emergencies, from active shooter incidents to natural disasters, so they're ready when it matters most. Each month, we will highlight a different area of security, building toward the BBB Business Shield Security Expo in October 2026. A large-scale event bringing together national speakers, local vendors, and industry leaders to address today's digital and physical security challenges. We hope to see Ross and Ron there with us. We're going to be talking from cybersecurity and physical security to AI, human trafficking, emergency preparedness, and you will leave with real tools to protect your people and your future, because safeguarding your future starts today. I'm Erika Genty. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.